Hey, it's Alex from Board Game Co. Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Or any of that stuff. And this is going to be a holiday episode or something along those lines. Just because it's Christmas out there. And I figure it's time for something different because I have no clue who's watching what right now. I have no clue whether you're spending time with family, looking for a board game to play, watching a TV show. I don't know what you're doing right now. But whatever it is that you're doing, I just figured if you're ever going to do something different, today's a good day to do it. And so today, I'm doing a series of videos, well, the first of a series of videos that I have planned, just around different things, different conversations, completely unrelated. More specifically, I guess you already know this because you saw the title, assuming I put it in the title, which I probably will. I see no reason not to. Plus, it's interesting, I guess. Is going to be my top 10 favorite TV shows. That's it. Top 10 favorite TV shows. No specific amazing long reason as to why, but just to talk about something different. I have this planned for a few things over time. My top 10 favorite movies, top 10 favorite books, top 10 favorite foods, maybe? I don't really know. And for this list, I'm just starting for number 10. We'll start off with The Boys. The Boys is currently on Amazon, available on Amazon Prime, or Amazon TV, or whatever it is. Amazon Video, that's what it's called. And The Boys is an absolutely amazing TV show based on the comic book that I believe now is extending past the comic book as we go into season 3. It's going to be extending past the storyline in the comic book, I believe. And the basic premise of The Boys is the idea that with absolute power, well, people get corrupted. In a more realistic but also kind of sad world, the people who have power, the superheroes so to speak, they're not pure evil necessarily, but they're certainly far from pure good. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And you have various heroes that have ranging from slight abuses of power to just bordering on pure evil. And you have this group of ragtag people, the Boys, that are there to take them down. Which is a premise we've seen before. The anti-superhero, in this age where everything is superhero, the anti-superhero has its place as well. If you want a board game that plays into that theme, well, first of all, there is the Boys board game on Kickstarter. You can check that out. But more specifically, I'd recommend The Reckoners. The Reckoners is a book by Brandon Sanderson that has a game that is absolutely a lot of fun to play. And if you've watched The Boys, even if you haven't read The Reckoners, but if you watch The Boys and then you play the Reckoners board game, it will feel very much like you're in that universe. And I like The Boys. I like it a lot because it is... I debated putting this one on the list. This is my number 10 because it is, I think, the shortest from all the shows that I have. Meaning I put this list based on a bunch of criteria. What it added to my life, how enjoyable it was. Also the longevity. So for instance, a show like The Queen's Gambit, which I have tremendously enjoyed, or the first season of Prison Break, those won't be here because they only had one season that really resonated with me. Versus The Boys, going on with 2 seasons so far, going on more. I'm enjoying it a lot. It has that longevity. And it's absolutely brutal in what it does. That show, if you haven't watched it, I really recommend it. I will tell you, if you watch the first episode and you're not pulled in, you can probably skip it. It probably won't pull you in past that. But the show is just so absolutely mind-numbingly brutal in its presentation. It is dark, it is gory, it is over the top in the amount of sensations they thrust upon you. I like that. I like that in a show. Spoiler for my number 2 show, whatever that might be. Coming in at number 9, we have The Office. Going to the, I guess, furthest extreme from the brutal, die-hard blood and gore and everything that The Boys has. The Office, which was on Netflix, or maybe it still is on Netflix, I don't know where it is nowadays. It moves around. These shows move around. The licensing has changed everything these days. But The Office, first of all, let me start with this. The Office has by far, the best couple I have ever seen in a movie or TV show. I think. I'd probably, you probably come with a whole bunch that would make me rethink that. But Pam and Jim are absolutely amazing. Their journey together is a fascinating journey. Now, I don't like the way it begins. In general, when it comes to TV shows and movies where you have characters meeting while one's in a relationship, and it prioritizes that glory of, oh, look at these two people and their boyfriend-girlfriend situation they have going on, that's evil and bad. I'm usually not a fan of that premise. And in The Office, I'm also not a fan of the premise. So while not a fan of the way they initially met, I will say I am very much a fan of how the relationship developed across how many seasons The Office was. A whole bunch of seasons. And The Office is simultaneously an amazing comedy, an awkward comedy beyond belief, but one that is done so well. And I'm specifically referring to the US version of The Office. I have not watched the British version of The Office. I should watch the British version of The Office. I love, what's his name? I can't remember his name. The actor. Jeez, it's gonna bother me. But in any case, The Office. I love the Office, the TV show. I love the awkward humor. I love the evolving storylines of the characters. And by the way, fun fact, you may not know this. Jim and Jan. No, not Jim. Jeez, I can't remember the name of the characters. I can't remember anything today. Michael Scott and Jan. And by the way, Ricky Gervais. That's his name. Ricky Gervais is the actor I'm remembering. I'm going all over the place here. But Michael and Jan in The Office, that couple that is constantly on again, off again, and super awkward together, they're married in real life. Let that sink in for a bit if you didn't know that already. It's something about their acting skills that they can present such a complete contrary picture of who they actually are on screen. But I love The Office. I love the awkward comedy it presents. I love the evolving storylines of the characters. I kind of missed Ryan, like, as he slowly moved out of the show, but I loved what he brought to the table, just his complete I know everything attitude and walking up and just taking over the place, and then occasionally getting his comeuppance as well when he didn't really know everything. I like the storylines and the humor and the just complete staring at, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that just happened. I like The Office a lot. Coming in at number 8 is going to be The Newsroom. The Newsroom by, again, names, Aaron Sorkin. 3 seasons only, unfortunately. A solid beginning, a solid end, and a middling middle. But The Newsroom is the show of... It presents itself in this, like, fictional world where you're running a news show and bringing a degree of ethics and responsibility to the table that real, live news whatevers don't have. And it's you know, it's night and... There's a term for it. It's white knighting it or something. I don't know. There's a term for when they present this idealized universe where reality is not so simple. It's easy to sit there and say, hey, look at this fictional TV show and look how they're going to act themselves and look how they're going to still win in the end and still do well and it all works out. It's easy to present these narratives that isn't necessarily true to real life. And I know the show got a lot of flack for that, of presenting this idealized world of how things should be that isn't necessarily true to the realities of, well, the actual world we live in. That being said, I watch TV not for the reality. I watch TV for an escape to a certain degree. And to that end, I like the idealized world that The Newsroom presented. If you want to get a feel for if The Newsroom is for you, just go on YouTube and type in Newsroom opening speech or something along those lines. It'll pop up. It's about 4 or 5 minutes. And just watch that. That literally is like the first 10 minutes of The Newsroom, by the way. It'll cut out the first few minutes, but you'll get basically the beginning of The Newsroom. And it's such a good speech. It is so well done. And that will set the tone for the rest of the 3 seasons of TV that you're about to watch. Granted, that will be one of the high moments. But if you want to get a feel for whether that show is for you, just watch those 4 or 5 minutes. I do recommend The Newsroom. I don't know where you can currently stream it, get it, or whatever. But it's one that I'm prepared to watch again for the 3rd time because I liked it a lot. Like I said, solid beginning, solid ending. Middle is a little disappointing, but still solid. Some characters in it that I didn't love, which is part of TV. You don't always love all characters, and sometimes that can actually help move a show along as well by not liking everyone. But overall, I really appreciate The Newsroom, and I do recommend giving that one a shot. Coming in at number 7, this is going to be one that... This is probably the least well-known one on this whole list. And that's going to be The Carmichael Show. The Carmichael Show, again, only 3 seasons, sadly. There's a few of these that are shorter than I wish they were, but The Carmichael Show, coming in with only 3 seasons, is practically a crime that it's only 3 seasons. And it features Jared Carmichael, a real person, although in The Carmichael Show he's not a real person, so to speak. But it features actual issues to talk about, and it handles them from a balanced stance. Just to give but one of many examples. There's an episode featuring around Bill Cosby and how you can enjoy or not enjoy his music, or his comedy, in light of new things about Bill Cosby. Can you separate the art from the artist? Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Are you a bad person for in any way contributing to his legacy by enjoying his content? Or perhaps not. Perhaps that's totally fine. It tackles social issues, but it tackles them in a way that I felt were genuinely refreshing, bringing both arguments for and against to the table. Whatever those social issues were, it had, across its 3 seasons, it did it every single episode, time and time again. And every single episode was absolutely amazing to watch. This is another one that I absolutely must watch again. This is another one that just delivers relevant arguments. And again, the balanced part is the part that I can't stop focusing on. It's easy to present an argument. It's easy to tackle a discussion. But I love balance. And the Carmichael Show genuinely brought balance to a lot of arguments. Not overly tackling one side or the other, but bringing in an assortment of characters, of colorful characters, to add their conversation, to add their voice to the conversation. And number six. Number 6 is going to be The Good Wife. I think this one is available on Amazon Prime, or at least it was the last time I checked. But The Good Wife is another... It's going to be most similar to the Newsroom from the ones I listed so far. Although with a little bit of the Carmichael Show sprinkled in, a little bit of that social aspect of conversational pros and cons that make it a show that is interesting to watch. It's not purely a episodic show with every episode going on and on tackling a new issue. It is episodic by its very nature. It does have a different storyline every single episode. One that's new, that's fresh, that whatever. But at the end of the day, across something like 7 seasons, with highs and lows, I don't think at any point did I ever not enjoy it. There were certainly points that I enjoyed it more. There's certainly episodes or storylines, sub-arcs that carried across a season that were more interesting as something would happen and law offices would be stormed and things would be turned over and papers would be confiscated and all kinds of things. It built the drama well. And it structured around a story that was well handled. And it had character development, true character development across 7 seasons. Certainly some lows, as some characters left the show. Some highs as wacky, interesting characters were presented across time. If you've ever watched the show, to this day, my wife and I will still say things and then follow it up with, in my opinion. Of course, in my opinion. Just a little, if you've watched it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But it has that aspect of really, the characters that it presented stuck with me and continue to stick with me. And it brought nuance to the table. There isn't, one of the things I love in good TV is the idea of nuance. The idea that characters are not black and white. They're not good and evil. They are nuanced. People are nuanced. People have motives. And those motives don't make them evil. It might mean that they do things that are not ideal, but it rarely makes them evil. How do you define evil is an entirely separate conversation that I'll save for a different time. But in this context, in The Good Wife, across 7 seasons, characters who you liked at different points did things you didn't like at other points, and back and forth, vice versa. There was growth, there was development, there were episodes where someone you had been rooting against for the past season suddenly was someone you're rooting for this season. It spun off into The Good Fight, I believe, which is something that I should watch more of. When The Good Fight first came out, I watched like 4 episodes and I liked it. It didn't have the full magic and picture that The Good Wife did, and so I never finished it. Although really, I should, because it was still good enough. Even if it wasn't as good as The Good Wife, it was still good enough. And even The Good Wife, like I said, had highs and lows across its 7 seasons. Number 5 is going to be Black Mirror. Black Mirror, and wow, this is one that, even as I'm saying it, I kind of want to push it up the list, which isn't fair though, because as soon as I say the next one, I want to push the next one up the list. This is the problem with top 10 lists, and it's also one of the reasons why, in general, not always, in general, I don't always rank my top 10 lists. For my top 50 games of all time, which I think my first episode was yesterday, that I'm ranking it, but it's hard when you actually have to put them in order. Every time I get to the next one, I'm like, no, I want to move that one higher. But Black Mirror is one that is absolutely insane. First had 2 seasons, wherever, I don't actually know where it had 2 seasons, but it had 2 seasons. Then it was brought over to Netflix, where it's had 2 seasons more. Then it had Bandersnatch, which I recommend watching Bandersnatch if you're a Black Mirror fan, but save that till the very end. There are specific highs and lows in Black Mirror. Each episode stands on its own. They do share a common universe to a degree. Little spoilers or hints or whatever, Easter eggs they've dropped from time to time show us that it's a common universe. But it's a common universe to like the barest possible sense of anything. But it has some incredible episodes, and again, it makes you think, which is something I value so much in board games, in TV, in books. I like thinking. It is a value to me. It's 100% a value to me. And Black Mirror makes you think by presenting technology or situations or constructs that aren't things we typically have to engage with. Like possibly my favorite episode. It is haunting and amazingly how good it is. I think it was the 2nd season. But it has this idea that as a society, we have a camera in our eye that's constantly recording things, and you can play things back. Can you imagine having that technology? Can you imagine how poorly you would utilize it. If you could replay every single moment of your life, think about emails you've gotten or texts you've sent that you felt there was a misstep involved, and how much do you go back and read that text? How much do you go back and question every word you said in that text and that email? Imagine if every single moment of your life had that potential to reimagine absolutely everything and to go over every moment, the good, the bad. It would lock us into a cycle that's frankly dark in what it's presenting. And sure enough, that episode is dark in what it presents. But Black Mirror makes you think, and every single episode does so in a different way. There are highs, there are lows, there are more interesting ones, there are less interesting ones. But there are enough solid moments in Black Mirror that, again, like basically everything on this list, I need to watch that whole thing again. Again, Bandersnatch, different. I think Bandersnatch is worth it. It's a worthwhile experiment to watch it, but it's very different. And Black Mirror is not all dark, by the way. Some things are actually very sweet or interesting. There was one, I can't remember what it's called, but there was a very Santa Maria, or there are a lot of different shows in Black Mirror. Some of them romantic, some of them dark and twisted, some of them futuristic, dystopian future and all that. All different ways, but fascinating to watch. Which brings us to number 4, which at one point is, I think, the first one on this list that at one point I really called my favorite TV show of all time, which would be Friends. Friends was my favorite TV show of all time, is currently my number 4. It has been surpassed, and I don't think it's necessarily fair that it's surpassed. It's just the nature of it. At the end of the day, it's a show that ended in 2004. It is not as relevant to my life. It's not something I resonate with or identify with quite as much as I used to. But that being said, from all the shows on this list, I've watched that one like 5 times the whole way through, and I have no problem watching it again. Friends is, I don't even know if I have to describe this one. Everyone knows this one, but it's the story of 6 friends. 6 friends living in New York and going through the moments of adventure and whatnot. And by the way, this also will have moments, going back to my thing from earlier about The Office, where, like in Friends, that concept of Ross and Rachel, and Ross, being in a wedding with someone else and saying Rachel's name, and then having everything fall apart, and then having her be presented as the bad guy there. Again, like, shows are interesting in the sense that they often present this hypothetical romance that is the glorification that we should focus on, even as other people are betrayed alongside the way and painted to be the annoying people getting in the way of this ideal romance. It's a dark thing. It's not a good messaging. That being said, good messaging or not, I do love Friends. Keep in mind, we have worse messaging coming in a few more shows. But in any case, in Friends, it's just the comedy is so solid. And Friends to me is the most quoted TV show of my life. For every moment that I have, there is a Friends moment. If you're someone out there who's watched Friends, tell me there hasn't been a time in your life where you've screamed to people across the room, "Pivot! Pivot!" It's something we all do. Je m'appelle Boop. Je m'appelle Boop. Je m'appelle Claude. There's so many different moments of Friends that are just comedy at its finest. Friends versus Seinfeld has always been the question that people debate, and for me it was never a question. I was always team Friends. Always. Seinfeld was good. I liked it. But it is going to be conspicuously absent from this list. Turns out even when I talk about my top favorite TV shows, I'll of course risk having someone say you're wrong in the comments. Which is fine. That's part of the drill. And then we have number 3. Number 3 is going to be The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And of course, I'm Jewish. It should be. But Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, again on Amazon, is absolutely amazing. I know people, both religious or Jewish or not Jewish, who love that show. It is so well done. Mrs. Maisel is the quintessential, like, just Jewish. It's so amazing. And the parents are arguing all the time, the bickering, the back and forth, the Harry, the Rose, all of this. It's so well done. Across 3 seasons that are all phenomenal. The first season is still the best, I think, for me. And it still has, things I don't necessarily love about it. Messaging I don't always love about it. But the general premise, to drive home. I'm not going to go into detail, but when I say the messaging I don't love about it, there is a specific moment in the show where she chooses, there are a few moments, but there's one primary one where she chooses her career over the concept of family and relationship. And to me, I can't resonate with that. I get that many will, by the way. It's not whatever, but the idea of dropping someone you're incredibly close with for the sake of career is something that I don't like it. But again, I like the rest of the show behind it. And overall, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is absolutely insanely good. I don't know how to really describe it. It is the journey of a Jewish woman through New York as she finds her voice in comedy and paves a pathway through show business and family and parents and husband and all these different concepts in life that are just, it's so well done. If you have not watched The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, do yourself a favor, head on to Amazon Video and go watch that first episode. And again, if you don't like it after episode 1, I don't know if it's going to change after episode 2 and 3. But it really just captures walking into a butcher shop and negotiating over like a slab of liver. This is Jewish me right here. Number 2. Number 2 is going to be Game of Thrones. This is the one I had in mind when I said, if I was worried about the content of TV shows and whether they painted a picture or an idealized lifestyle. Game of Thrones is hardly an idealized lifestyle. But Game of Thrones is, I believe it's the number 1 rated TV show on IMDb. I believe. I think all of these 10 are in the top 100 on IMDb, but certainly my order is not the same as the general audience's, because every individual is a special snowflake. And I am indeed a special snowflake. But the Game of Thrones TV show is, again, one that had highs and lows. And I certainly don't feel the level of betrayal that many do about the final season of Game of Thrones. I thought it was good. Honestly, it's what I expected from it. Because it had, Game of Thrones, for those who don't know, is from the books, obviously, from George R. R. Martin's books. And across the first 4 seasons, it stuck to the books. And in season 5, it started to branch out from the books because the books aren't finished and still aren't finished. And so they had to do something. And the first 4 seasons are incredible. I would say seasons 1, 3, and 4 are my favorite. Season 2 was a little slow. Or it might have been seasons 1, 2, and 4. I don't know. Either 2 or 3 I felt was a little slower. And then from there, in season 4, the end of season 4 is, oh my gosh, it's absolutely insane. It has such highs, such character development, such incredible. And speaking of nuanced characters, Game of Thrones has nuanced characters to no end. You are never really, not never, there are a handful of psychopaths in that show that you are always against. But a large percentage of the characters aren't good or bad. They're good or bad in the moment of who they are currently aligning with or helping. They have motivations, and those motivations may or may not help you in the current moment. Many of the characters you are rooting for or against throughout the 7 seasons of the show in different ways. Or is it 8 seasons? I don't even know where we're up to. Whatever it is. But then, it slowly, in seasons 5 and 6, I think it's 7 seasons, seasons 5 and 6, it slowly got a little worse. And it built towards an ending that in season 7, people were expecting some magical redemption arc of it being back to its former glory. I don't know why they expected it. It was good. I like seasons 5, 6, and 7. But people were probably expecting something, clearly expecting something from season 7 that wasn't going to happen. I was expecting it to be good up till the end. And I believe it was good up till the end. I don't believe they jumped the shark. I believe they went in exactly the pathway one of the few pathways that made sense to me. And I liked it. And I'm looking forward to, they just announced the release date for the next Game of Thrones universe TV show or something like that. I'll be watching it. I'll expect a good show. Not a great show. Game of Thrones very much is the lightning that struck once. It is an incredible show, an incredible genre. Again, one that I highly recommend you check out. A solid number 2. Which brings me to my number 1. My number 1 TV show of all time. And that, if you've been paying attention, when I talked about the Newsroom at number 8, if any of you sat there and said, well, if you like the Newsroom, you better watch The West Wing. The West Wing is my number 1 show of all time. Speaking of idealized universes, The West Wing presented a universe that politics these days is a whole different conversation. But it's not a conversation I like having, just because it divides people so much. It's very hard to have a balanced conversation. It's very hard to in any way present a viewpoint that is even middle ground without it in some way being pushed one way or the other and tearing people apart rather than pulling them together. Not that politics ever really did pull people together, but at least not pushing them apart would be a nice standard. But The West Wing is absolutely amazing. Sam Seaborn and, Bartlett and Josh Lyman and all the characters. Again, a little bit of Jewish stuff thrown in, a little bit of, Jewish characters with their quirks and their personalities, and President Bartlett is a president I wish we had. Genuinely wish we had. I don't really care where your politics lean. If you didn't like President Bartlett, you and I weren't watching the same show. Same show. I love The West Wing. It did go off the deep end towards the end. The first 4 seasons are amazing. Some of the best 4 seasons of TV ever. Seasons 5, 6, and 7 are... honestly, I'd almost recommend skipping them. Just because it goes from being so ridiculously, amazingly good to just being okay that I don't feel... I don't know. I do rewatch it. Whenever I rewatch the show, I do finish it off completely. But every time I regret it, and every time I sit there and say, you know what? Next time I'm just watching seasons 1 to 4. The West Wing was an idealized universe, one that I want to return to again and again and again. One that should be like mandatory watching for any politician ever. I mean, I don't know if it'll help, but who knows? Can't hurt, right? I love The West Wing. I recommend giving it a shot. It is an older show, which means it's not... sometimes when you have these older shows, and it's not that old, but when you have an older show, sometimes you're going to have situations where people aren't as pulled in if they're watching it for the first time. That's me and Star Wars. I don't care about the Star Wars movies at all. 4, 5, and 6, don't care about it at all. I actually prefer 7, 8, and not 9. 9 is trash. I prefer 7 and 8. Then, I don't know the exact order, but 9 is like my worst Star Wars movie of all time. 7 and 8 are amongst my favorite. I want to say 8's my favorite, which is already going to get me a whole host of people saying, how dare you, Alex? Which is fine. I'm not a huge Star Wars person. I like the universe. I don't love much of the content, although The Mandalorian is excellent. And no, I haven't finished season 2. I'm watching it along with my kids. Fun fact, my son's name is Yoda. His name's actually Yaakov Daniil, but when you combine the Yaakov Daniil, we just ended up calling him Yoda. It stuck. So now we watch The Mandalorian together because Baby Yoda seems like an easy conversation thing. We talk, it's whatever, side tangent. Point is that I don't know how we got into the Star Wars here. I don't even know what happened there. In any case, West Wing's amazing, and Star Wars. And there's a whole bunch of other shows that I would have loved to talk about. Mandalorian was one of them. But I only have 10 right now, and so I'm not going to overly... I'll touch upon a few briefly, not in any detail, but a bunch of others that missed the cut that I would have loved to fit into a top 10 list would be The Mandalorian, Community. Community is an incredible show. I absolutely love it. 6 seasons and a movie. I'm still waiting for the movie. You have The 70s Show. That is so solid. 70s Show is amazing. Lost almost made the list, but like the ending just... I don't hate the ending. I don't. But it also ruined to me what the promise of Lost was. The promise of the mystery and adventure and all that. And it kind of never really wrapped things up in a way that I felt satisfactory. And so Lost is still amazing. Probably would have made my top 20, but not my top 10. Rome, only 2 seasons. But Rome is the spiritual predecessor to Game of Thrones. Amazing show. Highly recommend it. Absolutely amazing. Everything. Same words. I can only use these same words again and again. The Witcher. The Witcher would have made the list, but it's only 1 season in, and I'm not 100% certain yet. But I love Henry Cavill in anything he does. Henry Cavill he's my jam. I love that guy. He's great. And yeah, I'm looking forward to The Witcher season 2. Can't wait to see that. In Silicon Valley is great. It paints a picture that is absolutely hilarious if you're into that genre of stuff at all. Archer is a messed up TV show that is as continuously funny as it is bizarre and over the top. There were so many good TV shows I would have loved to talk about, so many more. Like I said already, the first season of Prison Break would have been amazing. The Queen's Gambit, amazing. There are so many good TV shows out here. But these would be my top 10. Just because no one asked. But it is Christmas. At least, depending on when you're watching this, it may or may not be Christmas. And I just felt it was time for something different. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. However it may be, whether you're spending it alone, whether you're spending it with friends, with family. There are solo games. By the way, Under Falling Skies, get that game. Solid solo game. I recommend it a lot. If you want family stuff, I mean, Lost Wings of Arnak. It's been the year of CGE for me. Spoiler to my top games of 2020 list whenever that comes out, but those 2 are going to be on it, I'll tell you that much. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. This has been a slower paced video. People sometimes say, I talk too fast, and often I do. And sometimes I slow down and drink my coffee. Until next time, have a good one.